everybody's here. Can you just type it in the chat box that you guys are here so that I know? Okay. All right. Perfect. So this is going to be the last session. It's not going to be super long. We're just going to discuss pitching. We're going to practice it a little bit. And I think it's going to end more likely in 30 to 40 minutes. So you guys can then, rest, take a break from the sessions, etc. So the agenda for today is we're going to be talking about the pitch structure and the upfront contract. We're going to talk about pitch creation. We're going to practice your pitch. And then at the end, we're going to have like a small sharing and debriefing session. So can somebody tell me what a pitch is? Anybody, if you can unmute yourself and tell me what you think a pitch is. Tara, I think you're mute. Anybody who wants to share what a pitch is, and then we'll start the session itself. I'm starting to think everybody is at this point just too tired of all of the sessions. Okay.
I can support. Okay.
Yes.
How do I explain it without sounding technical? For me, a pitch is the art of doing a sales meeting. Like it's having a really great conversation with your partner or your prospect. So
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Jika. Anybody else? I think Jika has summarized most of what a pitch is. We're going to get into like a bit of a technical definition. So again, I'm the FASI for today. We're gonna start with the session itself. So what exactly is pitching? So pitching is basically your starting point of having a conversation with your partner company, right? So it can be anything. So like you made your first contact. We did the first session today on first contact, how you're going to approach them through emails, through LinkedIn, through discovery calls. Once you've made those calls, once you've sent those emails, when you're in touch with your partner, with your prospect, then you're going to have a conversation with them. And how that conversation flows, how that conversation is started is going to be your pitch. So the pitch is basically the starting point for a mutual conversation with your prospect. And the outcome of that pitch is going to be you discovering essential information that can help you design a proposal for them. So the pitch is basically that one starting point, that one point in the stage for your sales that is basically going to give you a pathway to discover your prospect's needs, the information, and it's going to give you the insights to discover, to design and structure the future proposal that you're going to send to them. And that is basically going to let you know whether you can qualify your prospect or disqualify your prospect. So right after making the first contact, the first mutual conversation you're going to have is going to be the pitch. How exactly the pitch works? So there are certain elements that we use in a pitch. So the first thing is personal introduction. That's basically going to be your starting point for the conversation. Then you're going to establish an upfront contract to proceed with the pitch. Then you're going to do an organization introduction. You're going to introduce what you do, what ISIC is, what exactly you are in, what exactly is basically the foundation of your organization, what are the projects you're working on, etc., etc. Like a brief introduction of what ISIC does. Then recall prospect interest. This is the part where you're going to get your prospect interested in your organization. This is the part where you highlight why they need to have this conversation, why exactly they need to be interested in your organization, and why other partners have partnered with ISIC in the first place. So this is where you tell them about a few like past partnerships, you tell them of the projects you've delivered, the deliverables that you've had, etc., etc. And the last part is basically the call to action or this connection for future discussion. So everything that we do as part of sales needs to have a call to action, needs to have the next step that is basically going to define the entire process for you. So this is the part where you establish a connection for future discussion, for a future meeting, for a future call, for anything that is basically going to help you qualify or disqualify the prospect. So this is generally the structure of how a pitch works. We're going to start with the personal introduction, and then we're going to move forward. So the structure of the pitch. How many of you know what an upfront contract is? So once we're done with the introduction, that's when we make the upfront contract. So how many of you know what an upfront contract is? If you attended the session that Chris gave, I think you would know what the upfront contract is. But well, if you guys want to share, please unmute yourself and let me know if you understand what it is. It's okay. It's completely fine if you guys don't have a complete idea of what an upfront contract is, but it'll be nice if you guys tell me what you think. Other than Sumi, of course, I'm pretty sure she knows what an upfront contract is. Anyone else? Anything. You guys can just give me random ideas of what you think it is. No idea? All right. So basically, what an upfront contract is, in very, very simple terms, it's your starting of your pitch, right? That's where you upfront tell them that you want to talk to them about the company, about the prospect, about the project, or about the initiative. And you basically decide that from this point onwards, I want to have this conversation with you. In very, very simple terms, it's your pitch for ISEC. So you're basically telling them that I want to have, do you have like time to speak about this? Or do you want to talk about this? Or do you have time to speak about ISEC in this specific context or in this specific construct? So when you introduce yourself, if you can see the screen, there's a pitch in front of you where it says, "Hello, my name is this, and I'm calling from this." Right. So the first question you ask is, does my company's name sound familiar to you? If yes, that's good. How have you heard of us before? Okay. If no, that's not uncommon. So if they've already heard about you before, you won't really need to establish an upfront contract. But if they haven't heard about you, you're going to ask them, "Can I take 2 minutes of our time to introduce myself and what we do?" And then we can continue to speak, right? So when you tell them that I want 2 minutes of your time to introduce myself, introduce my organization, that is basically you establishing an upfront contract. And then the rest of the pitch. So the first thing is the personal information. You tell them, "Hello, my name is Shameen and I'm calling from ISIC in Pakistan." Then you start the conversation. Does my company name sound familiar to you? Yes. We go on to organization intro and recalling interest, etc., etc. If not, you establish an upfront contract. You ask them, "Can I take 2 minutes of your time to introduce myself?" Then you launch into an organization intro. We basically talk about at ISEC, we do this. Usually, typically, these are the things that we do. We've worked with these companies. So when you recall interest, so something we discussed in the structure right now is that we recall the company's interest. How you recall that interest is that you mention something similar that they need that you've done with another company, right? So something like, okay, we worked with, like Sumi gave the example of UPS and DPDHL. You can tell them, okay, we worked with DPDHL for this specific initiative, and they had, firstly they had this pain point, and secondly they had this that they wanted help with, and we helped them with this. So you basically tell them what you've done for other companies, so that they would be interested in knowing what you can do for them, right? That's how you recall interest. Right after that, what you do is you ask if it's going to be relevant to them, right? So you ask them, "Okay, I don't imagine any of these are related to you or your organization," right? So if they say, "Okay, these are challenges or these are pain points that are related to them," then you can tell them, "Okay, we can schedule a meeting and we can have a discussion on it." If they tell you, "Okay, these are not our pain points," what you're going to do is you can ask them what their pain points are. So you can ask them what challenges they're facing, what problems they're having, etc., etc. And then you establish connection for future meeting, and you ask them, "Okay, let's talk about this in a meeting, or let's have like a small chat about this tomorrow. Are you free? It sounds very interesting. Let's have a conversation." That's how you structure your pitch. So you introduce yourself, you establish upfront contract, you gain their interest, and then you establish connection. So that's a 3 to 4 step process on how you're going to structure your pitch. Something I mentioned here was when you're recalling interest, you tell them about what you've done for other organizations. That basically follows a process called the pain words, right? So you tell them what you've done for other organizations by highlighting what other organizations' problems or pains or basically relative reasons were, right? So you basically tell them that let's say DPDHL was disappointed by their HR recruitment, or or were worried about their HR. So we helped them with this, right? So you highlight what pain you worked around for other organizations or for other companies, and how you can do the same for them. So let's say you tell them that a company that we partnered with was concerned about digital marketing. So we helped them with this, right? Or they were angry about not having enough social media outreach. So we can help you with this as well. Is this something that is this something that's your problem, or something that you are struggling with as well? We can help you. So these are seven pain words that you use to describe what you did for another company and how you can do the same for them, right? So let's say a very simple example: you go to a company and you tell them, and let's say it's a startup, right? And you tell them, okay, we worked with another startup, and that startup was worried about not having enough social media outreach. So I've used the word worried, and then I tell them they were worried about it, but we helped them do this. Is that a struggle you're facing right now, and can we have a conversation on how we can help you solve it? So that's something that you use in your pitch. You use these words to convey that you've already solved something for another company, and you can help them do the same as well. So there is a pitch example. I will open this as well, and this is something you guys can read. Let me open this and I'll share it with you guys as well. I will put it in the chat box. I want you guys to open this, and I want you to quickly read it and identify how the pitch has been structured. So this is a pitch between Christina and another person called Meredith. And Christina is basically telling them about ISEC, and she's telling them how she can help them with a specific pain point or a problem. So if you see this, if you can see it on my screen, Christina starts with introducing herself, right? And then she asks if they've heard about the organization, right? And Meredith says she did. And then Christina asks, how did you hear about it? And then she tells them, yeah, I heard about it through the Global Leadership Day, etc., etc. Then Christina establishes an upfront contract where she asks her, can I take 2 minutes of our time to introduce myself, and what we do, and then you can decide if it makes sense for us to continue to speak. So she establishes upfront contract. She asks her if I can introduce myself, and then we can continue the conversation. Meredith says, sure, you can talk about it, and then Christina gets into uh, the entire conversation about introducing ISEC, and then she uses the pain words. She talks about how she has worked with other organizations that were concerned about this reason, they were frustrated with this thing, and they were worried about this thing, right? And then she says, I don't want to make any assumptions, but is it possible that one of these reasons could be relevant to your company? So now that she's highlighted what she's done for other companies, she's asking Meredith if that is something that her company is struggling with as well, so that she can help them. So that's how she goes from introducing herself to recalling interest to establishing the fact that she's helped other companies do this, and she can help Meredith do the same for her company. And then at the end, she establishes a connection for a future meeting, and she asks if they're free on Monday 14th, right? So that's how you go from introducing yourself to setting up a meeting in a pitch. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. So that is an example of a pitch. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to give you guys 10-minute working space where you can create a pitch of your own, right? So it can be with any company, a company that you're working with right now. Um, let's say I'm assuming all of you have either a prospect or a company you're already talking to, or generally you've identified a company you want to approach. So I want you to keep that company in mind, and I want you to create a pitch for them, right? And that pitch can be anything. That pitch can be for employer branding, or you can highlight whatever you guys want, right? So that is generally how you're going to structure the pitch. So take 10 minutes, make the first version of your pitch, and then we're going to practice the pitch itself, and then we're going to create a version 2. So you guys have 10 minutes, create a pitch, and then when you're done, let me know in the chat. Okay, I'm assuming everybody is done with designing the first version of their pitch. The next part we're going to do is we're going to practice. So we're going to put you in pairs. There are 9 people here Excluding Sonata, that's going to be 8. So we're going to put you in pairs. And what you're going to do is you're going to practice your pitches. So how we're going to do is round one person's going to be the active role, the second person's going to be the observer role. So the person who's going to do the active role is going to practice the pitch. They're going to be the one who's going to be the icicer in this role, and the next person is just basically going to help them practice it, being the prospect, and then after that they're going to be the observer. So the roles are going to be switched. So we're going to do round one, and then we're going to do round two, and you guys are going to have 10 minutes each. We're going to put you in breakouts. I think Sumi's already doing that,
So two
and then
people
we'll
per
start with the
breakout.
practice. Yeah, 2 people per breakout.
Okay.
The session is about to end. Let me just share my screen. So I hope you guys had a fun time practicing your pitches. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a very small sharing space where you guys are going to tell me basically what good points from another pitch did you observe, what sort of things that you learned from this exercise, and what do you want to introduce in the second version of your pitch. So we're going to start with the sharing. If somebody would like to share first, please unmute yourself, or you can just type it in the chat box. Either way works. But I would really like some sharings on this exercise. Okay, Jika says
Okay.
Renz is going to
Yeah.
share.
Hello everyone. My name is Renz. Um, so for our breakout session a while ago, one of the things that we actually both noticed was um, how we don't really use scripts whenever we do pitches, although we follow a flow. Um, it's because in the context of our country in the Philippines, most of the people we interact with, they usually respond to very I guess personal conversations, even though they're in a corporate setting as well. So when we were practicing or like doing the elevator pitch, I also like pinpointing some parts that we thought we could revise based on our setting. So for example, there was this part where it we were already introducing Isaac as an organization, and then I actually personally like the part you added in the script, wherein aside from describing our organization, you also described the context in terms of how we engage with our partners. But and one thing we noticed is mostly what was placed here were pain points of the typical partners that we have. And I guess in our case, one thing that we would also do aside from pain points would be what what are the typical engagements of the partners that we have here, because most of the time some of the partners that we tapped have never heard of Isaac before. So um, one thing that we could do is actually let them imagine how a partnership would look like with our organization. So it's either from the different programs that we have, or maybe from the events that we're going to host, or the um, like the opportunities that we can actually look into based on based on their company's description as well. So I guess personally for me, pitching having an elevator pitch also meant for me I was already able to research a bit about the company, so that I kind of know already what context they're in, so that I could properly conversate with them more and actually secure that second meeting so that we can actually finally negotiate. So yeah, I guess that's for my sharing. Thank you guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Renz, for sharing. I think he's mentioned a few very, very good points. The first thing is having like common ground with your partner and having like a personal conversation. It's very important because people respond to personal conversations more than they would to formal conversations. So if you have something in common with them, if you have something that you think they'd be interested in to talk about, that's a very good way to start a conversation. Then you can obviously move towards talking shop and talking about the actual business proposal that you have. Another point is mentioned in having engagement and touch points with them. That's also very important. So, for instance, you're meeting a partner outside of obviously the business or sales meeting, and then you can, obviously have conversations around that. You can have engagement touch points over there. So, thank you so much, Renz, for sharing all of that. Would anybody else like to share? Because this is the end of the session. We can have one more sharing before we end it here, and then you guys can go. We can have one more group sharing. Anybody, guys? This is the last sharing, I promise. You're not going to have to share today anymore.
Let's go with Kim to MCPD manager.
Okay.
Okay, hello.
Hi, Kim.
Actually, like when in the sharing, and we didn't do much about the pitching, but we asked like the way we are trying to like sell or trying to promote our activities or our products for for the partners. Yeah. So I will share a little bit about my way to pitching. Um, so I think like for the good point that do the self evaluate, and yeah, for the good point that I briefly like tell them what kind of product I'm trying to offer to them, and that's what the benefit that they will get. And yeah, just that's it. For the like how to say like the improving points, I think it's the same as the previous one. Like we haven't had the script for the pitching. We had a script, so like we just randomly call or randomly like go into the meeting, or and then we say out loud like what kind of product we have, or like do the pitch like randomly and based on like how to say that, based on the instinct. Yeah, so I think like we should have the script prepare more to do the better pitch. Yes, that's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing. Something that both Renz and Kim mentioned was not having a script for a pitch. I think something that I would suggest from my side would be to not, if you don't have a script, it's completely fine. All you need to do is just remember what points you want to have in that conversation. So you want to have an introduction, you want to have an upfront contract, you want to establish connection. Three things that you, and obviously a call to action. Just remember to do these four things. Other than that, have not having a script is completely fine. Just go with the conversation. It's a lot more natural to just have an open conversation and just remember these points instead of having a script that you memorize, because when you have a memorized script, it doesn't necessarily flow as easily, and that's probably going to hinder your sales meeting as well. So having just points in your head of what you want to discuss is very, very, very important. And with that, this is the end of the session. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining and for